Hello, everyone, and welcome. The Arab Organization for Human Rights in the UK would like to welcome and thank everyone for attending today's webinar. Israeli detention crimes, torture, killing, and rape from Palestinian prisoners to Freedom Flotilla activists. Israel continues to escalate unprecedented and unrelenting violations against detainees, now documented through direct testimonies as well as UN and international reports that leave no room for doubt. This webinar will examine systemic torture and deliberate killings inside Israeli detention facilities. UN bodies have documented dozens of deaths in custody since October 2023. These facilities have also been the site of sexual assaults and rape. The UN Secretary General has described these patterns as credible and systemic. The webinar will also present testimonies from activists aboard the Freedom Flotilla. Their vessels were intercepted by the Israeli occupation in international waters in May of 2026. This resulted in the detention of more than 430 peaceful activists. These activists were subjected to torture, humiliation, and sexual assault. This incident has sparked widespread international outrage, and it has led to the summoning of ambassadors. It prompted joint condemnations by 10 countries and resulted in formal complaints being filed before the International Criminal Court in The Hague. The webinar will further shed light on the international community's silence and inaction. Despite the availability of overwhelming evidence, there remains a persistent absence of accountability. The webinar will also bring together a distinguished group of human rights defenders, international experts, and researchers who specialize in prisoners' rights and in Israeli violations to discuss the legal, humanitarian, and political dimensions of these crimes and pathways to accountability. I would like to welcome our distinguished speakers. Thank you for making the time to be here and share your expertise. You will each have about 5 minutes to speak, and then at the end, we'll give about 1 minute for any further comments. I would like to first invite Dr. Fateh Varol, a faculty member at Yalova University and board member of the Global Flotilla. Dr. Varol?
We can't hear you.
You're on mute. Your sound is not working. Dr. Varol, I'm so sorry. Your sound is not working. Let's go to our next speaker, and we'll see about testing your sound if that's all right. Thank you. Let's move on to Marika Stom. She is the head of the Netherlands delegation of the Global Flotilla, human rights activist and writer.
Thank you. Yes, so I am the head of the delegation from the Netherlands, and we had 10 participants from the Netherlands joining the flotilla. Yes, and then indeed 4 of them were intercepted or abducted on the night of the 29th of April. So that was the first interception where Israel violated international law and abducting people from international waters close to Crete, which is just like absurd that they were so far away from their own borders to start abducting people who are doing something that's completely legal. And 4 of our participants were abducted and detained on this prison ship or torture ship, and they had to deal with severe abuse, also with sexual violence. And then they were also witnessing the abuse of the others and the torture of Saif and Tiago, who were after that taken to Israel to detention. And then after that, of course, there was also the interception of 18 and 19 May. And yeah, we still had 6 participants on board, amongst them 2 journalists. And yeah, also these participants have all had to deal with severe abuse and also yeah, the sexual violence part was also very present there, maybe even more than on the prison ship. And that's what all the testimonies are showing, that there's cases of sexual violence and rape, and this is a fear that was also present in our delegates all the time. And yeah, and still, well, this caused an outrage in our country, so that was in that sense it was a good thing, because there was a political reaction, and also there will probably be a court case. But at the same time, however, these images were so horrendous, then the situation of the Palestinian prisoners is still much worse and ongoing. And we are doing our utmost to galvanize political pressure within the Netherlands and also within Europe and European Union to somehow bring an end to this. Yeah, well, that's all. This is our current situation.
Thank you so much. I wanted to ask a quick question, and this is possibly true for all of those who are on the flotilla. Is that Israel does not publish the statistics, but Declassified UK just released a report and found that more than 50,000 of the Israeli military are dual and multiple nationals. The Australian filmmaker Juliette Lamont spoke to Double Down News about horrific torture and rape that she suffered, as well as others, at the hands of Israeli military. And she noted that some of their assailants specifically had an American accent. Have you also heard that internationals are also participating in these in this torture and rape by the Israeli military?
I didn't have this specific confirmation, but I do know that there are also people from the Netherlands joining the Israeli army. So, but yeah, we didn't have a specific, in this flotilla, we didn't have an experience with that. But in general, this is like a problem in the Netherlands. And we are trying to address that together with this foundation that we have here. Is the Hind Rajab Foundation. So we want to make sure that people who commit these war crimes cannot just come back to the Netherlands and pretend like nothing has happened. Yeah.
Thank you so much. We're going to, let's see, Dr. Varol,
Yes.
did you? Oh, now we can hear you. Wonderful.
Voice problem. Yeah. Yes, I'm Fatih Varol. I'm working at Yalova University. And, I was in last mission of the Global Flotilla, and then we went to the occupied territory, Israelis prison, and then they tortured us very, very hard. And then we came back to Turkey, and then we tried to understand what will live on this place, and then what we do. But I want to share my reflections on the Freedom Flotilla, actually, and provide a rigorous legal assessment of the crisis and demands our urgent attention, the critical situation of the Palestinian prisoners, because that's important, because we live that sample of this process, and they live that process for 10 years, 20 years without any hope, because we knew some diplomatical process will work, and then we are going back to our countries. But they don't feel any hope, and they tortured till their whole life probably. Because of that, the Palestinian prisoners is important in within Israeli detention facilities, examined through the prism of international law. First of all, Freedom Flotilla, we must understand that it transcends the scope of a mere humanitarian aid flotilla. In an era where international enforcement mechanisms suffer from systematic paralysis, the flotilla epitomized the collective conscience of global civil society. As a lawyer and an advocate, I view this initiative as a legitimate exercise of civil diplomacy and the right to peaceful maritime assembly. It directly challenges the blockade of Gaza, a blockade characterized by numerous United Nations bodies as a form of collective punishment, which is strictly prohibited under Article 33 of the Fourth Geneva Convention. But when we turn our attention from the seas of the conditions within Israeli carceral facilities, we observe an even more alarming systemic crisis, one that fundamentally undermines the bedrock principles of international humanitarian law and international human rights law. Central to this crisis of the institutionalized abuse of administrative detention, pursuant of Article 78 of the Fourth Geneva Convention, again, detention without formal charges of trial of permissible solely as an exceptional temporary security measure. Yet Israel's systemic practice of holding thousands of Palestinians infinitely based on classified evidence, while systematically denying detainees and their legal counsel of the right to an adequate defense, constitutes a flagrant violation of the right to a fair trial guaranteed by Article 14 of the International Covenant of Civil and Political Rights. Furthermore, under Article 76 of the Fourth Geneva Convention, an occupying power is legally mandated to intern protected persons within the occupied territory itself. The transfer of Palestinians detainees from the West Bank to Gaza to penal institutions inside Israel directly branches this conventional obligation, amounting to unlawful deportation. When we add to this the documented reports of severe medical neglect, prolonged solitary confinement, and the arbitrary restriction of familial visitations, we see an open contravention of the United Nations standard minimum rules of the treatment of prisoners, the Nelson Mandela rules. Most tragically, the prosecution of detention of Palestinian minors by military tribunals strip these children of the special protections enshrined in the United Nations Convention of the Rights of the Child, which explicitly stipulates that the detention of the child must be utilized strictly as a measure of last resort and for the shortest appropriate duration. Distinguished participants, we are telling something to the world. This is the maritime routes charted by the Freedom Flotilla and the legal advocacy sustained for the rights of detainees are bound by the exact same imperative. The preservation of human dignity and the defense of the rules-based international order. This is actually I prepared this speech for this program, but we'll leave there. I'm believing now the Israelis opposite the humanities, and then we should work against them. I'm not talking about the anti-Semitism. I'm talking about the anti-Zionism. Zionism is a big problem for the humanities, not just for Middle East, not just for the Gaza, not just for the Palestinians. In this situation, the problem is not the blockade of the Gaza or the freedom of Palestine. In this situation, we should understand that the problem is Israel and Israelis, terrorism, and then vandalism all over the world. And then if cannot stop the Israelis' vandalism and terrorism, anyone cannot live their homes safely. Even in Berlin, even in Paris, even in Mexico, even in United States, we should protect we should protect all human and humanities from the Israelis and from this Zionism. Thank you for your time and then for the solidarity. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It is good to hear from you. I would like to invite Bokor Amole. He is the Secretary General of the Communist Party of Kenya. Thank you, Dr. Varol. Can we hear from Bokor Amole? Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Lisa, for giving me this opportunity to give an intervention on behalf of the Communist Party Marxist Kenya, where I serve as the General Secretary, and also on the accord of the Friendship, Kenya Palestinian Friendship Society. This is a broad-based anti-Zionist, anti-imperialist organization that its sole mandate is to give solidarity to the heroic Palestinian people. Now, on behalf of my organization, I would like also to congratulate and appreciate the defiance and the courageous comrades and friends that participated in the Freedom Flotilla. This for us is important because when we take such actions that we know are extremely dangerous, in essence, they can even mean the loss of life, but they still defiantly and courageously join the Freedom Flotilla. I think those of us who support the Palestinian freedom, the Palestinian statute, the Palestinian self-determination, interpret Freedom Flotilla as not just a humanitarian action, but also a political action. In essence, to expose the hypocrisy of the Zionist regime in the occupied Palestinian territory. Because the Palestinian have always continued to suffer under settler colonialism. Now, every person is talking about, in essence, why is the international law not being obeyed? But in essence, the Zionist settlers are actually occupiers. So that means everything that is happening under the occupied territory of Palestine is in itself illegal, that cannot respect the basic human rights, that cannot expect any international law. There is no international law that actually legalizes settler colonialism. So if they are building their case on illegality, on land theft, on murder of the innocent Palestinian people, then we did not expect them to respect even the laws that govern the international waters. When our comrades in the Freedom Flotilla were arrested, actually kidnapped and placed into the custody of the settler regime, particularly the Zionist regime led by Netanyahu, we only expected more violations, because this, we can also interpret it like the Palestinians have survived the Zionist prison since 1960s. There has never been any humanitarian consideration or even human rights obligations towards the Palestinian people. They have been held in cages like animals. They have been denied food, water. They have been taken through long interrogation. This is the in furtherance of the illegality of the occupation, settler occupation that is taking place on the Palestinian land. So this is important. So when we appeal to the international law, we must know that the biggest aggressor, the primary aggressor, and the enabler of Zionism offensive in the west of Asia is not other than United States of America. If United States of America would like the offensive against Gaza to end, they will definitely end it. But they continue to finance it. They continue to enable it through military hardware and software, through support of the logistics, to make sure that the majority of the Palestinian people are actually homes. Continue to elaborate. My comrade has talked about the Mandela, the rules of Mandela in regard to when Mandela was imprisoned. And even we can go further, after the fascist regime fell in Italy, there was also how the political prisoners were meant to be treated, even during at that time. We don't expect the Zionist regime, particularly led by Netanyahu, to respect the rights of prisoners, because he's not even respecting the rights of the non-prisoners. In fact, in Palestine, particularly Gaza, they have lived under occupied territory. They have lived under an open-air prison where the Palestinians go through apartheid on a daily basis. The international law of the United Nations has actually criticized, even in the last offensive in Gaza, where the humanitarian aid workers were actually bombed and murdered. The doctors were killed. Journalists were killed. So essentially, we are talking about this as a crisis of imperialism. That if United States does not sanction this killing, this murder, using their proxy, military occupiers, which is the Zionist regime in the occupied territory of Palestine, then indeed there is no international law. We have seen, even in retrospect, if we have to do some comparison, which international law allowed the bombing of Iran or, the occupation in South Lebanon. So the Zionist regime has gone rogue, and we should not expect any international law, even though we continue to reassert a legality of the Palestinian people. But I think the best and the most effective way that has worked for the majority of the Palestinian people is the collective resistance from below. So we continue to heroically remember the martyrs of the resistant axis, the martyrs of Hamas, the martyrs of Hezbollah, and all the resistant group, even Palestinian Liberation Front, that continue to fight against this land occupation. Here from Africa, we want to say that the pain and the scars of British occupation still lives with us today. The Palestinian struggle for us is the struggle of the African people, that we shall continue to fight colonialism and neocolonialism where it rears its ugly, its ugly head. And we want to assure the Palestinian people that you have brothers and sisters in the African continent, and will continue to raise the Palestinian flag higher and higher. And to the political prisoners that now languish in the Zionist prison, please know we are with you. You resemble the Mau Mau fighters that lived a life of actually nothingness in the absence, in the wilderness of just the cages in the open wilderness that the similar to the Palestinian people today living in Gaza. So we remember your struggles, and for today, we just want to pass warm solidarity to you. And please know that even though we have not been able to send any material support, But where we can, we will be able to do so. And we will even be willing to fight with you on the front line to make sure that Zionism is defeated. Thank you very much, Comrade Lisa.
Thank you so much, Booker. It's a pleasure. Next, we're going to hear from Dr. Frank Romano. He's the professor of international law and a participant on the Global Flotilla. Thank you so much. And I just wanted to show you, I have my Handala pendant that I received over in the West Bank from a wonderful young friend who gave it to me, and I wear it always.
Hello, can you hear me, Lisa?
Yes, I hear you loud and clear. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on the program. This program really is about prisoners. So I am Dr. Frank Romano. I am the one of the lawyers that represent the Palestinians before the International Criminal Court. I was also, as you stated, I was on the Handala. I am the owner of the Handala, the last mission, and these last two missions and interceptions. But you know, it's not about the flotilla participants. It's not about us. What we were doing was our obligation. It's not about heroism. We really empathize with the Palestinian people. They are our brothers and sisters. So I want to first, Lisa, I want to first focus on Palestinian prisoners, and then we'll get to the flotilla, and then my final observations on what the international community can do about the awful situation in Israeli prisons where the Palestinians are stuck there, and this genocide in Gaza. But just to note that the Article 76, the Fourth Geneva Convention, relative to the protection of civilian persons, relate directly to, in particular, Palestinian prisoners, because Israel, as an occupying power, and the International Court of Justice has confirmed, even with respect to Gaza and the West Bank, Israel is an occupying power and is obliged to give adequate medical attention, food, and due process to prisoners in the Israeli jails. But it's been found, and Al-Haq has confirmed this, as well as advocate Janan Abdu, an attorney for the Palestinians, that food provided to prisoners is often extremely insufficient. As we felt also as members of the flotilla, we got a touch of all these violations that I will talk about very soon after this. Then also advocate Janan Abdu, again, who represents the Palestinian people, has brought out his clients have said that the Israelis are engaged in deliberate starvation policy in prisons, and as well as we see what's happening in Gaza. And even the High Court, even though there were complaints about starvation, since he represented the Palestinians before the courts, arguing about systematic starvation, but he couldn't name any specific prisoners because they would have been there would be retaliation against them. So the High Court simply pushed it aside and said, well, there's no specific proof. You haven't named any victims, and so pushed it away. With respect to medical attention, the Al-Haq, as well as advocate Janan Abdu, have said there's serious illnesses among prisoners, as well as infections and so forth are not being treated on a regular basis. And medical care is often denied with grave consequences. Now, advocate Janan Abdul stated one. His client's leg, for instance, was amputated during his detention. And after a severe beating, he suffered more pain. And he petitioned the court to find out the cause of all this, and was not responded to, and he was not treated to. Then another prisoner was initially declared dead after his wife asked for help. The lawyer, Janan Abdu, petitioned the court to find out the cause of death, suspecting that he had not died a natural death. The lawyer requested the medical file, did not get it. So a lot of what's happening in prison is being covered up completely. And again, the Palestinians are stuck there, very little redress of grievances. and those that are subject to administrative detention. Administrative detention refers to the imprisonment of Palestinians without charge or trial through the use of administrative rather than judicial procedures. No charges are made. They could literally be in there for months, for years without any charges. It's worse than a life sentence. And during that administrative detention, defendants try to represent themselves, and the Israeli authorities say, well, it's secret evidence. So any evidence against him cannot be disclosed to the defendant, to the prisoner, nor to his lawyer. They can't really represent themselves. And one of the other speakers talked about collective punishment. Under Article 33 of the Fourth Geneva Convention, many prisoners are in prison, in Israeli prisons, that have not directly caused any type of crime, but they've been associated with people that have allegedly caused crimes against Israel. And this is completely in violation of collective punishment, Article 33, which is also why the blockade is illegal, because stopping humanitarian aid going into Gaza, that's just one grounds of the illegality of the blockade. Is it touching the lives of women, children, many innocent people that are suffering? And that is called also collective punishment violation. There's been many cases of torture in jail, and we'll talk a little bit about it, what happened to us in the flotilla, inflicted on prisoners on a regular basis, imprisonment of children. It's just a loathing, direct violation of all Geneva Convention standards for the prisoners of the Palestinians. So we want to, I have a limited period of time, I want to talk about us as the flotilla prisoners. The same conditions on a short-term basis. We were put on these prison torture ships where many of us were beaten, and some noses were broken, ribs were broken. And I was asked by the doctor to talk to someone who did not, as we were put after the first interception on a Greek boat. Greece, of course, is very accomplished to the Israeli crimes, but we won't get into that now. I was asked by the doctor to talk to someone who was just sitting there like a zombie. He said, please talk to him. I don't have time. I'm talking to other prisoners who are bleeding, that are more urgent, but he doesn't know where he is. So there was one of the prisoners that was on the Greek boat we were all forced on the boat and brutalized to get on the Greek boats. He had a serious concussion, and after maybe a half hour, he could finally tell me what his name was. And after that, there was progression, but he was taken to the hospital along with 31 other people injured in this prison ship, and I diagnosed as having a very serious concussion. In any case, yes, we in the flotilla were submitted to torture. There were 15 people that allegedly, and I think there's proof that they were sexually assaulted, including one rape. I myself, when we were taken in the second interception to Ashdod port, we were taken to a room where we were bowing down in a very humiliating way, and with very tight handcuffs on. My handcuffs were so tight that and the Israeli soldiers that put them on didn't notice that part of the bag with my things was inside the handcuff, making it even tighter. And I didn't say anything for an hour or so. I felt they were just going to come down on me, and people sitting around and bowing around me in this awful position for a long time. If I had complained, they would have taken it out on me and them. But finally, I had to yell out, and then my friend next to me, Hytham, said, "You better say something. Just yell out for a med, whatever. Keep saying it." They finally came and loosened my handcuffs, but my hands, they looked at my hands that were swollen like balloons. But this is just the tip of the iceberg. There were people that were beaten senseless, and I could see when we were placed in the cell, they had terrible black eyes. Some of them couldn't breathe. They couldn't hardly breathe because of the broken ribs, and no medical attention. This is a clear violation of the Geneva Convention. No medical attention was offered us, and I wasn't given my medication and so forth. So I want to conclude this. Again, we got a taste of what Palestinians receive in a much more intense way. We were in Ketziat prison in Negev, desert. And I think there were 43,000 Palestinian prisons. I think it's one of the biggest prisons for Palestinians in the entire, in all of Israel and the West Bank. So to finalize this, I do want to talk about what we can do as a community. And of course, there's talk about filing a complaint, and the complaints before the International Criminal Court. The problem with that, and it's not a problem, the violations of war crimes are, treating prisoners with now medicating them and torturing them as they have us, and as they are systematically torturing Palestinians, is a violation of the Rome Statute and Geneva Conventions, which apply to the ICC statutes. But the ICC already has pending cases. The case that I submitted along with Al-Haq about 6 years ago, after I was jailed and returned and deported to France, is pending. We did receive a victory on jurisdiction, and we did receive a victory when finally, after October 7th, the prosecutor and the judges issued arrest warrants against Netanyahu. It took them 5 years to do that, and waiting for an absolute genocide after 7th October. But still, that's something. But I don't feel that going before the ICC, even though there are a group of us did file a complaint before the ICC for war crimes committed against the flotilla members recently, and they are filing. Actually, it wasn't a complaint. They went and spoke with prosecutors, and it's a first submission. I think that since there are other cases pending that the ICC is not deciding, the best option, I think, would be going before the states. In other words, there's a nationality jurisdiction where in the home states, people from the flotilla can file complaints with the prosecutors over grave offenses, and they can get decisions by the state courts. One cause of action can be a violation of the Fourth Geneva Convention, Article 23, which says, that the law has made it that the treaty is involving any type of violation of Geneva Convention standards, especially in the event that there's humanitarian mission with vessels registered under flag, particularly transporting relief consignment protected by Article 23, that the state courts can make decisions about this. And for example, in Turkey, the Istanbul chief public prosecutor has initiated comprehensive criminal investigation into Israel's unlawful attack on the Global Flotilla, and citing also Article 23. In Italy, the same. And in France, this is I'm almost finished here. In France, this is a side matter, but still important, that there's an International Federation for Human Rights for Palestine and French member of organization Al-Haq have filed a civil party complaint with the War Crimes Unit of the Paris Tribunal against Yoel O, a French Israeli soldier who served in Gaza, and has been proven that he was involved in some of the torture there. So finally, universal jurisdiction can also be used to file complaints against individual criminals from the Israeli regime within the national courts. I'll just cite finally the one final case, case, a famous case, 1998, where Augusto Pinochet was arrested in London based upon a complaint filed in Spain. So in other words, universal jurisdiction, you can file the complaint anywhere and seek a mandate of arrest anywhere else, and there's no statute of limitation against an official or someone who has committed war crimes. And he was, there were several trials, and as we know, he was released based upon his age and so forth. But that's universal jurisdiction that we could think about using to apply to Israeli agents that subject the Palestinians to such egregious violations of the Geneva Convention in the prisons and against the flotilla members as well. And I want to thank you again for this program. And we're in solidarity with Palestine. And by the way, as an active member of the Global Flotilla, the Freedom Flotilla Coalition, we are not giving up, and we are planning in a new strategy, and we're continuing the pressure, and God willing, we'll head to Gaza again soon. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Frank. It's good to hear from you. And also, I just wanted to make a note. Thank you also for centering Palestinians. Like I mentioned, my Handala necklace. My little friend, my young friend who gave this to me, both her dad and now her brother have been taken prisoner, and so this is something very. Thank you for centering Palestinians. Let us move on. We're going to next. We're going to hear from Tarek Raouf. He's a writer, activist, and Global Flotilla organizer. Thank you, Tarek.
Thank you, Lisa. And thank you, Frank, for your kind words. Frank is a good comrade of mine. I really enjoyed working with him on this flotilla, and we're on different boats, but we both got to spend some time together on sea. And I don't think anyone will really truly be able to recognize or witness the beauty of the camaraderie and the community of the people on those boats. And I think that's what makes this mission so special, is that efforts like the Global Flotilla truly give the world an understanding of what actual international solidarity looks like. There are people from all walks of life, from all over the globe, who came because they had to. They didn't come because they were being paid. They didn't come because they thought of it as some sort of opportunity. They came because they recognized that their countries and their leaders' inability to stand up for justice against Israel's cruel actions and their genocide and their apartheid meant that they had to step up themselves. And I'm like really proud of the community that I've been able to be a part of in doing this effort in this mission. And I want to take a moment to also recognize that as a Palestinian who has lost about 49 family members in the genocide in Gaza over the last 2.5, nearly 3 years, I can't even express how much gratitude I have for the fact that these people who are not Palestinian, who have not lost family members, who have not experienced the same amount of loss, still felt within their hearts that they had a moral duty and obligation to do what they can. I remember I was sailing on a beautiful boat named Shireen. She was a support vessel carrying some therapists and some journalists to cover the mission. And we were aboard while the night that the first interception happened, when we were like 600 nautical miles away from Gaza, nowhere near Gaza. We were closer to Greece than we were anywhere near Palestine. And I remember seeing the military ribs circling our vessel, the military drone coming down to inspect us, see who we were. And curiously enough, they chose not to intercept our vessel, but they went after our comrades. And it was a very weird experience as a Palestinian, seeing the Israeli military that has killed my family members, the same Israeli military that's sniped an 8-year-old cousin of mine in the head, the same Israeli military that has sniped a cousin of mine for trying to get water, for collecting rainwater, which Israel has made illegal. To see that military go after my friends was surprising and shocking and heart-wrenching. And as I sat in Crete, where we were all docked, waiting for our comrades to be released after they've been illegally kidnapped and taken to Greece, I remember there was a moment afterwards where, after the comrades have been released, we were all gathering in Crete, and we had a meeting so that we can all kind of come together as a community and understand what were our experiences. So those that were intercepted can speak about what they experienced at the hands of the IOF, and those that weren't intercepted can speak to their experiences. And I remember telling them how weird it felt as a Palestinian and as the leader in the organization to have contributed to them, helping them kind of put themselves in danger in front of the IOF, contributed to having like made the possibilities of the IOF kidnapping these people like it was my work and the work of the organization and those of us that have made this mission possible that have led to these horrific circumstances and these testimonies of what Frank and so many others have experienced. And I expressed to them how weird it felt to be handing them off to the same Israeli military that killed my family, and how much pride I have in all of them for being willing and able to do what they want, do what they felt necessary. And afterwards, one of the flotilla participants came up to me, and I think she could see how much I was affected by like getting to know all these people, and and getting to see them actually be put in physical danger. And she looked at me and asked, and she said, "Just so you know, like I am doing this because I want to help your family. I am doing this because I know what is at risk, and we have to do something to stop these people." It was one of the most heartfelt and touching moments I'd had on the flotilla. But I know without a doubt that that is exactly how the 428 participants felt when they were being abducted and when they were being abused by the Israeli military. And it's that kind of humanity that I think the action of the flotilla showcases to the world. And in this respect, you know, I'm very proud of the way that we've been able to get the international community to be so outraged specifically about this case of detentions, and because of the way that the Ben Gvir stupidly splayed out the violence for the world to see, and these condemnations. And Lisa, you at the beginning, you had mentioned about, you know, so many Israeli ambassadors being recalled, and all of these things that these nations have done symbolically to demand better, to acknowledge the harm that was put on these participants. But I think we also have to keep in mind that these are the same nations that have been colluding with Israel and have allowed the illegal kidnapping of these participants to happen. There was an Israeli media piece put out about how there was a command center in Kiryat that was dedicated to stop the flotilla participants, and it was filled with military personnel from over 20 countries. And two of those countries, France and Italy, are also the countries that have said that they've recalled their ambassador to demand better treatment or explanation as to why these participants were being treated this way. And it is a game of mouse and cat to these people, and it's not something that these countries are truly seriously taking into consideration. And I think that is where the power of the people comes through, is because I've seen the way that the people throughout Italy and the people throughout Spain and so many other nations genuinely do care and mobilize and protest. And I think we need more people to demand sanctions from Israel. That is where we're at now as a movement. I've purposely been thinking over the last like year or so, you know, we've done really good with the boycotts. We've done really good with the divestments. We've seen a lot of wins in those sections, but we have not seen nearly enough wins when it comes to sanctioning not only Israel, but all of the guilty parties responsible for allowing Israel to commit the harm and the violence they have been. And that also includes sanctioning countries like Greece, who have allowed Israel to use their lands to illegally kidnap and traffic two flotilla leaders from Greece to Israel, one of whom, Saif Abu Kashik, had no intentions of going to Israel. He was trafficked to Israel from Greece because that is where they took him after first abducting these these initial participants. So I want to just end on reminding every single person that we do have the power to change the world. And it is because the actions of normal, everyday citizens on this flotilla that people are having these conversations, and this kind of work is being put on a global stage. But you don't have to focus on work that is so global, that is so huge. You have to focus on your own families, on your own communities, on your friends, and your work, at your church, all the places that you go to on a daily basis, and interact with people that know you and understand you, and advocate and let them know how you feel about Israel and why everything Israel is doing is so wrong. And by having those conversations, you get to change minds, which then get to change more minds. And it's a ripple effect. You don't have to change the whole world. You have to just change your own world. And I am a full believer that I think the flotilla and everybody on this flotilla is kind of showing the world exactly what it looks like to change the world.
Thank you, Tarek. It's hard to hear the things you talk about, but it is also very inspiring, and thank you for your calls to action also.
Thank you.
Okay. Next, we're going to go to hear from Declan Greenway. He's a former UNRWA operations officer. Welcome, Declan. It's good to see you again. Oh, Declan, can you take yourself off mute?
Hi, Lisa. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Thank you for having me back, and I promise I'll be a little
Yes,
bit more
absolutely.
brief this time than the last time.
Okay.
I'm coming from a little port in Southern Ireland called Kinsale, my hometown, which is famous for sailing. So we know everything about flotillas, and I'm in awe of the people who sailed in trying conditions to publicize the plight of the Palestinians. That being said, and also the behavior of the Israelis towards these sailors was appalling. But it pales in comparison to what happened since the 7th of October in Gaza. And we must always remember this. The slaughter of innocents in Gaza is just unpardonable. So good and all as it is, I think it's a good tactic. It gets publicity, but I think we must be strategic. We are dealing with a very cunning enemy, the state of Israel, and it has to be fought with clever, strategic aims, not just tactics. So I may touch on that a little bit later. I think one of the problems that we have, which has occurred since the 7th of October, 2023, is that we have become desensitized. We have become so used to the depravities that have been committed by the state of Israel on the people of Palestine that it's very hard to shock us anymore. The use of what was known as the Dahiya doctrine, which was a doctrine which the Israeli army under its former chief of staff, Gadi Eskinov, it showed their tactic was to use incredible, disproportionate force against the Palestinian people. We saw how many children, women, the weak were so targeted. And it is truly awful what has happened since then, and it must stop. Now, it will take a little bit more, I'm afraid, than flotillas sailing towards Gaza to stop this. As I said, we must be strategic. We must take on with great intelligence against the occupation state. But we have to do better. I want to go on now to touch on the prisoner items, which is truly shocking. The stories that are coming out of the torture center, which they call a detention center, Stay Taiman, in the Negev desert, are absolutely shocking. The recent male rape of a poor Palestinian man who was suffering so badly from the rape that was perpetrated against him. His bowel and his insides are in shreds. This is intolerable. We have the situation down there where they have actually taught dogs to rape young Palestinian boys and girls. I mean, this is depravity. It reminds me, but it's even worse, I think, than what we saw in Abu Ghraib by the American occupation forces there. But then again, they are supporting what's going on by the Israeli state. They are their biggest backers. And until we can convince them that what they're doing is wrong, I'm afraid we are going down a hole. I was lucky enough, if that's the word, when I worked with UNRWA, to get inside. It was mentioned by one of your previous guests, the Ketzio Detention Center in the Negev Desert. Now, this is an appalling place. I was lucky, as I said, that I was sent in there to see innocent, unread teachers, doctors, etc., who had been taken in because they were leaders of society. And the conditions that these people suffered made me cry. And I don't cry easily. So this is the sort of thing that needs to be addressed. These have to be shown. It is nice to sail down there and everything like that, but it takes a little bit more. I was absolutely shocked and appalled yesterday watching Sky News. It interviewed a Lord Mann, who is the British government's spokesman on anti-Semitism. What he spoke about appalled me. He was talking that doctors and nurses in the National Health Service over there should not be allowed to show any overt signs of being in sympathy with Palestine. He sat there and looked into the camera and said, I would not like to be sitting in a dental chair when a dentist went to work on me with a I love Palestine on my vest. I mean, what a shocking thing to say. What an idiot. We all know, I'm sorry if I'm getting a little bit uptight here, but we all know that what was targeted in Gaza was the medical facilities. There is a doctor in custody still who has been raped and tortured. And we have a Lord man talking about anti-Semitism. What has the world come to? The word anti-Semitism, I'm afraid, has lost all its value because it has been conflated with legal protests against the state of Israel. Now, the thing again on the medical thing, we are seeing a repeat of it in my beloved Lebanon, where I served as a young officer. They are now targeting the hospitals. They're killing its medical workers. It is appalling. And unless, and we have to do a little bit stronger, I'm afraid, than sailing boats down towards Gaza. It's a political thing, it's a strategic thing, and we've got to make people realize the true horrors that are being caused by the Israeli occupation. I think I've lost you, have I? Have I lost you, Lisa?
Nope,
I'm
I'm
back.
here. Sorry,
I'm
something
back.
happened with my
And I'm
camera.
still mad. And I'm still mad.
Yes.
And I'm still rage. And I rage for the Palestinian people. I am not a Palestinian, but I worked amongst them for 10 years. I know them, and they do not deserve this. And it is time the occupation, which is the basis of everything, and you can tell Trump anything you like, but until they've realized it's occupation, 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 that is the problem. When the occupation ends, you will have peace in the Middle East. But until it ends, you will never have it. And no matter what about, getting people into the Abraham Accords, which of course the sawdust doctor down in Saudi Arabia would love to be trading with Israel and his colleagues from the Gulf Council. If you want to have your Abraham Accords, Palestine must be at the center of it. Palestine first, everything else next. And I think, Lisa, I'm probably done. So thank you for putting up with my rage and look forward to seeing you the next time.
Thank you so much. No, Declan, your rage is absolutely justified. Thank you again. Next, we're going to hear, next we're going to hear from Alicia Koutsoyanis. Alicia?
Hi, thank you, Lisa. And thank
Hi,
you
thank
again
you.
for the invitation to join another conversation with the organization. Declan, I am on the same page as you are with the rage. I too am not, I'm not Palestinian, I'm not Israeli, I'm not Muslim, I'm not Jewish. But I did have that opportunity in 2016 to visit Palestine, and I saw firsthand what was happening as far as the government of Israel implementing an apartheid state. And that 10 years ago was, it was a difficult trip to be on, but I'm very thankful that I had the opportunity to go because it allowed me to see firsthand what's happening on the ground instead of relying on local news sources that filter the information. So now at any time when I have the opportunity to speak, whether it's to a crowd of 10 or 100 people, I'm speaking with firsthand knowledge. And I'm also I'm speaking from the heart. The conditions, like I said, in 2016, I was in the occupied West Bank. I did not have an opportunity to visit Gaza, but you could still see the oppression that was put forth by the Israeli government. And since the genocide started, it has only exponentially gotten worse. And it's not just in Gaza. There's been a lot of violence that is now spilling over into the West Bank. Unfortunately, I think that the uptick in violence there is because all eyes are on Gaza. But in any at any point, you know, we can turn on the news and see that things are getting worse both in Gaza and in the occupied West Bank. As far as what I think the international community needs to know is they need to know who we're dealing with, right? Like I said, we can't depend on Western governments or media to give us a true accurate account of what's happening. It is very, very unfortunate that we've had to witness a genocide in order to get accurate information. But the fact of the matter is that since 2023, when this since the genocide has begun, we are able to see firsthand as the violence unfolds from people that are most affected on the ground. Thanks to social media, we're getting these accurate, this accurate information. So again, like I said, we don't have to rely on sources that are not giving a true picture of what's happening or giving us false information as far as what's happening. As far as the activists are concerned, again, we need to know who we're dealing with. So the Israeli government, they have been treating their Palestinian prisoners with no respect prior to this. So I don't think it is a shock to some of us that have been in this space for a while to know that the Israeli government is treating international prisoners any worse or better than their own. Within the system in the occupied West Bank, if Palestinians are arrested, they go through a military court system, not a civil system. If there are settlers who are also in the West Bank, when they're arrested, they just go through a regular civil system of law. But it is important to note that any settlers that are in the occupied West Bank, even though they are there you know, with the permission of the Israeli government under international humanitarian law, they are there illegally. But like I said, they go through a different system. With the Palestinians, when they are arrested, I know some other folks have mentioned it, they are placed oftentimes under administrative detention. With that, they are often not allowed access to any legal representation. They're oftentimes kept away from their families. So they could be detained for months at a time and their family will have no contact with them. And oftentimes they don't even know where their family, what facility their family is being held in. And this also includes children. So children, the age of legal responsibility in the occupied West Bank is 12 years old. So if a young child is arrested, they can go through the same perils as an adult, where their parents don't know where they are, they don't have legal representation. They're often coerced into signing confessions that are in Hebrew. But in reality, if you give, a teenager legal documentation, even if in their native language, there's a good opportunity that they're going to struggle with understanding the implications of what they're signing. So imagine them be given something in a different language. But we have there's several different organizations that have documented, as we've mentioned, that there is ill treatment and torture that's taking place. But when, as Tarek had mentioned, Ben Gavir, like, again, we need to know who we're dealing with. This is somebody that in the past, he had a picture of a person that had done an attack in the mosque in Hebron. Goldstein, I believe what his name was. This was many years ago, but it was a massacre. He killed 29 people before the people in the mosque had an opportunity to detain him. But Ben Gavir put his picture up in his home as though this is supposed to be some kind of martyr or somebody that is supposed to be revered. So this is the mentality of the people that are in charge of these detentions. So what do we need to do? Like I said, we now have accurate information as to what's happening. So we need to make sure that we are pressuring our elected officials to make sure that they are holding the Israeli government accountable. It's great that we have these activists that are on the flotillas, because it's an unfortunate thing that they are being treated the way that they are, but they are getting international attention. So it's not this secret that just a handful of people know and understand what the Israeli government is doing. So they are not only doing it to their own citizens, now they're being boldened enough to do it to international peace activists as well. So with that information, it's hard to say now that we don't know what's happening, and we don't know what has been happening for the past 2.5 years. It is very clear that the state of Israel operates as an apartheid state. They have been committing a genocide, and now it's time for the international community to start to hold them more accountable. So here in the United States, what I do with the organizations that I am working with is I make sure that I am collecting, again, correct, accurate information, and we share those out in the communities. And then we ask our community members to speak to our elected officials and talk to them about what's happening. Because to be fair, we know that that's somebody that is a member of Congress. We understand that they have a lot to they have a lot to learn as far as what their constituents need, whether it's on a local level, state level, or a national level. So they could be, they could have a lot of information about a lot of different things, but not necessarily, an expert on anything. So that's where we come in to provide that information for them. They are in their positions because we have elected them and we have put them in place. So I think it's very fair that we have the right to go in and speak to them and let them know what's on our minds and what kind of changes we would like to see with the power that they have. Again, here in the United States, we know that every phone call, every text message, every piece of tangible pieces of mail, every in-office visit, all of that information is recorded and reported. So that's why we're encouraging folks to step out and do this. A lot of people may feel like it's a little intimidating to speak to their elected officials. But again, they are there and they are working for us. So we should hold them accountable. And at the end of the day, if they are not willing to do what's right and be on the right side of history, we have the power to vote them out and put somebody else in that will.
Thank you so much, Alicia. I'm in California, and we also are working with our elected officials, getting involved in political clubs, finding community so that you can, as a group, go in. But it's slowly slowly, but it is steadily working, and we are getting our, as we've seen this year in the primaries here in the US, we are having so many more politicians feeling free to speak out. We're having so many more talking about, the Israeli lobby. And so thank you for all the work you're doing. Yes.
Yes,
And
oh, go ahead, please.
oh, I just wanted to say, also, thank you for putting that out there to go to Palestine. I've also been over to the West Bank. And it was an amazing experience, and it's something that I really strongly suggest that everybody does if they have a chance. But do go to the West Bank. Do see for yourself.
Yeah, and I would like to add, so I've been in this space since 2014. And when I started, it was basically political suicide if somebody mentioned anything of any type of support for the Palestinian people. So, like I said, it's unfortunate that we've had to witness a genocide, but with the extreme and violence that is happening within the Gaza Strip, and now we're getting a much more clear picture of what's happening in the West Bank. That is basically giving the green light to a lot more politicians that feel that they can safely speak out about what's happening, and it won't jeopardize their career. So, it's been a tremendous shift, and also within just like public opinion. A lot of people didn't realize what's happening. Even prior to October 7th, 2023. But now it's really difficult to say that you don't know what's happening.
Yes.
So that too, we are really seeing an opportunity for people to get on board and to help get the message out and to increase their activism for the Palestinians. So
Yeah.
so that has been one positive that we can say that is an outcome of what's been happening for the past 2.5 years.
Yes, the US is a very big boat, but we are turning it around. We
Yes.
will turn it around.
Yes.
So thank you very much.
Thank
We're
you.
going to hear now from our last speaker is Nicoletta Grieco. She's a member of the European and International Department from the CGIL, your Italian Union. Thank you, Nicoletta.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting us. Thank you for sharing your incredible experience. It is really important for us to be here today and to hear from you above all. We have followed the Palestinian issue along the years. We have always supported the Palestinian people. We have a very strict relation with the PGTFU, the Palestinian Union. Since the beginning of the war, we have sent aid and solidarity to them. But about the flotilla, I think it was very important for us, also the first mission, because we think that it has contributed to put a light on the situation that was put in silence. I think that it has contributed to build a movement. And after the first attack to the first mission of the flotilla, I think that we have been the only union in Europe to have called for a general strike and a very, very big demonstration in Rome the last October 3, 2025. And that was very important to sensibilize the Italian community, above all young people, because the demonstration was full of young people. So we supported all the mission, and we denounced the illegal attack, the illegal boarding to the first mission of the flotilla. And the general strike was very important because I think it was just unique in Europe. About the last illegal attack to the flotilla, we have condemned the illegal action committed by the Israeli government, and with the detaining of the activists of the Global Flotilla. There was on board also Italian member of the parliament, and it was very important that the President of the Republic, Sergio Mattarella, defined the attack as an outrage, and he stated very, very hard word of condemns against the attack. As you know, we have a far-right government that until now has been very, very shy with Israeli and US government, but they were forced to say something at the end. And I can confirm what has said the Dr. Frank before. There is a court, there is more than a court case opened in Italy for kidnapping, torturing, and for abuse. So I think that we will follow all the court case and support the court case, because it's very important, as he said, that at transnational level we can put this case also at national level to prosecute all the crimes that Israel has committed against the activists. And because we think that this is not an isolated incident, because the detention of the flotilla activists is a sign of strategies that Israel uses military force, intelligence, and political pressure to target activists, humanitarian missions, and international support for Palestine. But we can't give up for this. So we have organized in the last weeks a lot of rallies, and we have pushed the government to interrupt any trade agreement with Israel. We have done this also in Europe, in the ETUC, in the European Trade Union Confederation, that at least approved a resolution calling for the release of the activists illegally seized, because there were also leaders of trade union that were arrested illegally. So it's very important also to put pressure on the European Confederation, because we have to put pressure on the European Union to interrupt and to put sanction interrupting trade union trade agreements. That would be very important, and we are trying to do it in Italy, but also at European level. And also at international level, we are, I mean, our position is the same also in the ITUC. So to put pressure at any level, because we want to reestablish multilateralism, and we want to reestablish international law in every part of the world. And at this moment, Israel and United States are breaching the international law in Gaza, also in other parts of the world, because we know that also the war to Iran is illegal, was illegal, the kidnap of Maduro, and it's illegal and are illegal all the menace that the USA are doing against Cuba in the last month. So we want to defend international law. But there is another case that I want to bring it to your attention, because maybe you know that there was also a land flotilla, and there were a lot of activists who were arrested in Libya. But now we have still 10 activists arrested in Benghazi. Among them, there are 2 Italians, but there are also Argentinian, Tunisian, American, Uruguayan, and Spanish. And we have denounced this today, this morning, at the International Labour Organization during the International Labour Conference, in the Libyan case, with the Argentinian, Spanish, Portuguese, and Uruguayan unions. Because the importance, I think that the activists Propal are attacked in any part of the world. There is a movement who want to attack all the Propal activists, and we have to contrast them. So I think it's very important what we have done today also at the International Labour Conference. So I mean, just to conclude, I want to tell you that as CGIL, we will keep on denouncing, demonstrating, put in evidence all the crimes that Israel and United States are committing against the Palestinian people, and all the breaches of the international law. And we will keep following also the national court case. But I think what we have all say today is very important, because the international movement pro-Palestine, it's very important. So we must keep on light a candle, keep the light on the Palestinian situation, what is happening in Gaza. We are also welcoming Gazawi family here in Rome, because we have a lot of young boys that are sheltered in our hospital after the war, and we are paying for their staying. And I think it's very important that also we sensibilize public opinion about this. We must build a very important transnational movement, and so I thank you very much for this initiative, and thank you very much for having us with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nicoletta. Italy's solidarity has been amazing. I had the privilege of meeting many Italian activists when I was over in the West Bank. Okay, as we finish up, we have 3 speakers who were able to stay. So I would like to ask if you would like to give any closing statements. We'll start with Declan. Would you like to give any closing statements? And your anger is very warranted and welcome. I'm sorry, can you turn on you'll need to unmute. Declan?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Lisa, and I will be brief. You know, I'm from Ireland. We had a lot of problems with, a certain occupying power. Again, occupation being it still occupies 6 counties of my country. It is still a cause of tension in my country. So occupation is something that must be ended. There is only one way of doing it, and the address is 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, White House. They are, and that is the only power that can rein in the
I'm sorry, Declan, you're breaking up a little bit.
Frankenstein monster by the support of American presidents. Can you hear?
We can, yes, I think your connection stabilized.
Yeah. It's just quite amazing that the IRA, a so-called terrorist organization in Ireland, carried out a campaign against British rule in Ireland. It went on for years. It had very little success for many years until they did one thing. They targeted the city of London, which is the financial capital of Britain. And for a degree, it was financial capital of the world. They bombed the city of London. Within a very short time, the English asked to have peace talks with Ireland. I am not advocating violence, but what I am saying is that the only way that you can influence government is in the pocket, financial. Now, it was tried once and very successfully by George Bush Sr. and his Secretary of State, Baker, when they said to Israel, we are not going to give you the loans guaranteed so that you can build your settlements in the West Bank. This is how you hit them. Refuse to give them money to expand their occupation. And do it quickly, and do it by putting pressure. I think it was Alicia said to write, yes, write the address, as I said, is 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, Washington, D.C. Put the pressure on the President of the United States. Now, he's in a lot of trouble at the moment because of his misadventure in Iran. And if there is any good that comes out of war, it is probably epic fury, or as I call it, epic fuck up or failure. It's been a failure, and it seemed to be a failure. This is the time to push home your advantage. And I think that he is in such a bad position. And let's be quite honest, no other president of the United States, even the Joe Biden, the Irish Zionist, he did not support a war with Iran. Trump has, and he has failed. Iran does not need a nuclear bomb, which is what Israel is trying to threaten everybody, that we must stop Iran getting a nuclear bomb. They have the Straits of Hormuz. It's paralyzed the world. A piece of waterway, stopping shipping. So look, if anybody can have any word in the ear of Mr. Trump, don't tell him don't listen to Netanyahu. Netanyahu is a war criminal, a genocider, a liar, a cheat, and he will find his day in court very soon. Enough said. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Declan. Let's move on to Alicia.
Thank you again, Lisa. So just to reiterate, we need to make sure that we're putting the pressure on both at home and on an international level. The United States, prior to October 7th, 2023, we were sending $3.8 billion, that's B, billion, dollars to Israel on an annual basis. And a lot of that aid was in the form of military support and military weapons. And now this was prior to October 7th. But essentially, we have, for bad behavior, we are awarding the Israeli government with even more funding. That needs to stop. The Israeli state, they have access, their citizens have access to free healthcare. Their children can go to the university. for free. Like those are luxuries here in the United States. So we are sending all of that aid. And they say that the things that they're doing as far as the blockade that was in place, it will now be almost 2 decades that the Gaza Strip was under, or that has been under a blockade, in addition now to the genocide that's happening. And basically what that means is that nothing can come in and out of the Gaza Strip without the authority of, or without the approval of the Israeli government. So that means food, access to clean and safe water, electricity, medical supplies, even construction supplies. And I mentioned that because this is not the first conflict that the people of the Gaza Strip have been victims to. There's been other conflicts. They've just been a lot shorter and not as deadly, but still very destructive. And they don't even have the opportunity to rebuild after that. And now they're facing almost entirely, their infrastructure is almost completely collapsed since the genocide. Also, the occupied West Bank. They've been under military occupation since 1967. That is, and a military occupation is supposed to be a temporary military tactic, but now we're looking at almost 6 decades of that. And that too, it means that the majority of the Palestinians' life are restricted, anywhere from protesting to movements. Even it dictates what you can plant on your own property. There's a military order that states that you have to have permission what you plant. What the difference is between cucumbers or tomatoes or roses and hydrangeas, what that has to do with security, I'm not sure. But that's why they're implementing these military orders. And everything that they do, they say they do it in the name of security. But being backed by the only real superpower anymore, with the strongest military in the world, and basically a blank check, and all of that support, and you still can't get your house in order, there's still the need to have these oppressive things intact against the Palestinians. So that's why we need to make sure that we are pressuring the government, especially here in the United States, because all of that will go away if they don't have the continuous unchecked funding that's coming from the United States. The blockade will end, the occupation will end, the apartheid will end, and most importantly, right now, the genocide will end. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for Nicolette. Sorry, Alicia, I don't know how, there's a move right now to change the financial support that currently it must be approved through the US Congress. They're now trying to move it to a more integrated agreement. Let's see, in the House's version of the 2027 National Defense Authorization Act, which is being debated right now, there's a section in there called Section 224, which will lay the groundwork for bilateral research and development, which will end up kind of replacing this financial support that has to be approved through Congress, but then integrating it into our military. I posted the link in the chat, but we should talk later. Anyway, let us move on.
It's also important. It's important to note also that the amount of aid that is going just to a single country, Israel, it's more aid than the entire continent of Africa. And that's where, like, I think it's a great thing that the United States has the means to step in and assist after a conflict, after a natural disaster, if there's a famine, something like that. I think it's great that we have the capacity to provide aid in that form. So there's several countries in Africa that would definitely benefit from this aid, but instead we're sending it in the form of military support that is that's feeding a genocide. So we really need to start looking at that and redirecting where our funds are going and making sure that they are going to help communities and not hurt them.
Thank you so much. Let's hear from our last speaker, Nicoletta Greco. Thank you, Nicoletta.
Yes, just a few things. Yes, we have to put pressure on Europe. Europe is at the moment standing still without doing anything, and that's outrageous, that's a scandal. And because we think that expressing solidarity with the Palestinian people means defending the right of every people to self-determination, to have a state and to be able to live in peace. As you know, Italy has not yet recognized the state of Palestine, so we will keep up putting pressure on our government, because of this also fully means fully applying the principles of our beautiful constitution that was built after the defeat of fascism and Nazism. And so also just to conclude, for this, because of this, it comes from our constitution too, we want to demand respect for international law and multilateralism, because this is the only possible path to peace. And also to bring peace to Gaza, to bring peace for the Palestinian people that at the moment are oppressed by a neo-fascist government. That's the Netanyahu government. So we keep on bringing our solidarity internationally, and also keep the light on the Palestinian situation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nicoletta. And thank you everyone for joining us today. I just want to, as we conclude today's session, I just want to make sure that we are always centering Palestinians in this struggle, focusing on the children growing up under siege, families losing their homes to expanding Israeli occupation, communities facing daily displacement. Generations have been subjected to policies designed to erase their presence on ancestral land, and even just the very existence of being Palestinian. This week alone, Israeli airstrikes have killed 1 person and injured 16 in Khan Yunis as shelter tents were destroyed, while settlers attacked Palestinians in the West Bank. Israeli troops shot another man dead. Meanwhile, in Lebanon, Israeli forces have raised their flag at Beaufort Castle in their deepest incursion since 1982, with airstrikes near hospitals injuring civilians, as the April ceasefire proves absolutely meaningless to those who are living under this bombardment. This reality is unfolding under decades of international complicity, where humanitarian laws that have been meant to prevent such atrocities have been systematically ignored by Western governments, allowing violations to continue with impunity. Even this week, the US and Iran traded fire in the Gulf, while Western powers failed to hold Israel accountable again for its expanding occupation of 60% of Gaza and the planned seizure of 70%. But we are seeing cracks under the pressure of solidarity, which is what we are doing here today, and we must not stop. We must continue to demand freedom and human rights without exception, hold international institutions accountable, and repair the legal frameworks that were created precisely to prevent these crimes. We have the tools we need. The struggles for justice continues, and so must our unwavering solidarity. Thank you everybody so much, and we will look forward to next time. And hopefully, inshallah, it will be under better circumstances. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.